everyone. I hope you can hear me well. Uh, Welcome to episode 3 of Mysteries Unlimited. Tonight we will be talking about missing person cases. But before we get into that, I want to ask everybody that will please share the live feed. And let's get some more people in if we can. Share it on your Facebook or your Twitter or in groups. Also, tonight I want to let you know that the show was sponsored in part by RAZE energy drinks. You can actually get 15% off of your order on there on the website. The description is in the link. You can use code RZ4U and you can actually save 15% on your order. What's good about this, my son actually drinks this as well. I drink it too, but zero sugar. He's a diabetic, so it doesn't affect his sugar levels. There's no crash like you get with a lot of other energy drinks. So if you're so inclined, remember to use the code, and the link is in the description. And you can try they got a lot of good flavors. And they got these little to-go packs that you put in bottled water that's awful good. All right, let me see if I can get Leo in here. That looks like Leo. Is that Leo?
I think so.
All right.
Looks like him, but he's fatter.
Well, I know about that. I lost 50 pounds, and then through the winter, I put on probably 15 or 20 pounds, I guess. Put back on. I eat because I get bored.
I just haven't been with lockdowns and all that. I haven't been able to get out and walk any of this off.
Like Leo and I was talking tonight's show. We talked earlier today. We're going to cover some missing person cases. Some of them are very intriguing, mysterious in many ways. So hopefully we can discuss that and bring up some new information that maybe you've not heard. Leo, are you almost ready with what you got?
I am. I'm just having a little sound issue here. You're really quiet.
Well, while you're doing that, let me give everybody some statistics. In the 1980s, roughly 150,000 people were reported missing per year. But now they estimate the number at 900,000 per year. And really, it's closer to 1 million people a year go missing. When a child goes missing, the first 3 hours are the most crucial in finding the child safely. Approximately 76.2% of abducted children are murdered or found dead within the first 3 hours of being abducted. So in other words, each passing hour decreases the likelihood of finding a missing person alive, but it also decreases the chances of finding the missing person at all. The first 48 hours is what they consider to be the most important in a missing person investigation. During the first 48 hours, of course, they can find, it's easier for them to get leads and track down possible suspects. And of course, as time goes on, finding leads is much harder because it gets cold, the trail gets cold, or the witnesses don't come forth. And here's something that's kind of interesting that you may not know. After being missing for 7 years, you are or can be declared legally dead after 7 years if nobody has had contact with you and they've not found any remains or anything like that. So with all that said, Leo has a very interesting case that he wants to share tonight, which probably many of you have probably heard about or read about, but I would assume that he has some extra details that some of us may not know. So Leo, I'll put you on the main frame, buddy, and let you go.
So the one that I have 9 pages of notes here on this is the Casey Hathaway the bear boy, the one that he went missing for. They found him on the third day, and when he got to the hospital, he was fine. And when they got to the hospital, he started talking about a bear that had uh, accompanied him for the last couple days and kept him warm. And of course, when the Bigfoot community heard that, they automatically jumped on the Bigfoot bandwagon. But there's reasons why. And basically, what happened was he was out playing with two other kids. Depending on where you look, you'll hear, a few other kids, but apparently it was two other kids, and they came in the house, and Casey didn't, and the grandmother and some family members looked for him for about 45 minutes before calling the police. And the the magic angel bear story. Yeah, Duke, that's the one. So long story short, this is in the middle of the wintertime, very cold in North Carolina, torrential rains coming down. There was every government agency that could possibly be there was there. They had to turn volunteers away because of fear for their safety. On the third day, they said that they reacted to a tip of where he was, and at the same time, I watched a video today of a woman who said that she happened to be walking her dogs, and she heard the little boy calling for his mother. So she runs back to the house to make the call and say, "I think I found him." And at the same time, a bunch of people come running, and she has all this action around her. And when they found him, they found that he was in some briars, and he was cold and wet and obviously upset, but really the only injuries that he had were his hands and feet were a little swollen, and I would think with the cold weather and that would have something to do with that. But other than that, he just basically had little marks on him from the briars and thorns and such. So the interesting things though about it is the depth of the water that the rescuers and the police mentioned. In order to get to him, they were at roughly waist deep. So how did this little 3-foot tall little boy manage to get over there? So we fast forward into the hospital, and it comes out that the boy said that a bear had accompanied him and had helped him out. But you have the people that are saying, well, it's something that happened to the boy's brain that made him be able to cope with it. Bears don't do that. But immediately, everywhere that you could go, and you can still go and read these stories online and the videos online, and you'll still see 2 or 3 comments in people recommending getting in touch with this guy or this guy or this guy from the Bigfoot community, because they were absolutely convinced that there was no other way that this could happen without, he had to have assistance to get where he was, and to be able to even survive for those 2 nights and into the third day. So he gets to the hospital, and that's when the story of the bear being there with him and helping him out. And as many people tried to, dismiss this as well, it was just a fantasy, whatever. It's just a kid saying this and everything. His mother was very, very adamant. And even the updated articles that I read, the mother was very adamant. If he says that he was with a bear, he was with a bear. But so that's basically the same story. I mean, like I said, I have 9 pages of notes here, but it's basically the same thing over and over again. But they really can't explain it. But the interesting thing that I found with the new updated stories, they've all but taken the whole bear thing completely out of it, which I
So
thought was odd.
they've
That's
scrubbed that part of the story
yeah.
on the websites. Well, I've seen stuff like that before in the
Hmm.
past where they scrub certain details. Uh, and in fact, the Sandy Hook shooting, I kind of, there's a lot of controversy around that. And I was following it, and was looking at web pages about it, and these were actually news organizations, no news organization, and the pages were disappearing right before my eyes, even though I've been reading them, and I want to just disappear. So they can go back and scrub information and details out and remove stories. I've seen it happen firsthand.
Well, that's wild though. That I mean, we all know what happens, but you got to actually watch it in progress. So
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, I watched it, and that was over on the Sandy Hook one. That was over one of the little boys that they said had died 2 or 3 times. Uh, when that story was out, and it had been on the internet for quite a while, and I was researching it because I'm a freak, and and
but you're an
the
honest freak.
and they were just disappearing right in front of me, man. That's the pages were. But back to this little boy. Uh, to think that a bear, uh, I guess a bear could take care of him, but I would figure at his size that a bear would be more interested in eating him than
Well,
anything.
that's the thing. This time of the year, but that time of the year, especially in January, yes, bears will wake up out of their slumber and go have a snack, but they're sluggish and they're still pretty groggy, but they're hungry too. So you would think if a bear was involved at all, that's exactly what would happen. But strange things happen. So
Well, I know a lot of people in the Bigfoot community think that this kid was actually taken care of by a Bigfoot, and to me, there's only one of two things that really hits me. Either the kid was actually taken care of by a Bigfoot, or there was some kind of divine intervention that kept the bear from eating the kid if it's a bear. Just the whole story just seems kind of odd to me. And we know the little boy was missing, and we know that's if it had been a hoax, and sometimes hoax, people do hoax make missing person accounts.
mhm.
But this little kid had some injuries, and he was treated at the hospital. So I mean, if it had all been a hoax, I'm sure it would have been busted by now. But the question remains: what took care of the kid for 3 days? How did he survive? What did he eat? Uh, what kept him from getting hypothermia?
Well, that's the thing. Like I said, they were turning volunteers away because it wasn't safe for them to be out there. And there he is on the third day, fine. He's just fine. But the interesting part to that though, with them finally finding him, these are grown men that have to walk through waist deep water. How did he get? So we can allow for some water, getting deeper and the water level rising because of the type of the hard rain that was coming down at the time. But it's not going to rise that much.
Not
That
this fast.
no, I mean there's no at his height he would have if he had stepped into that he would have drowned. So what got him over? What was large enough to get him from the other part of the woods over to this one spot that grown men were walking in waist deep water? So I'm kind of with you. I'll put it this way: I can believe that a Bigfoot would do this a lot easier than a lot of the ridiculous horror stories. Not that some horror stories aren't true, but I mean the whole sensationalism of all the horror stories and all that's extremely popular right now. From what I've seen and I've experienced, and it hasn't all been good, but from what I've seen and I've experienced, I could see a Bigfoot doing this a lot faster than out there gobbling people up. I'm
Well,
sorry, but I
recently I shared some videos on our YouTube channel of stories of where Bigfoot had helped people. One guy, if I remember correctly, he had gotten snake bit, and the Bigfoot treated him. He passed out, of course, and they carried him so far and put him close to where their camp was, so he could holler at the other guys. And then one of them actually involved a lost little girl, if I'm not mistaken. The little girl had wandered off, and evidently the Bigfoot had got her and kept her for a while. No harm to her, brought her back, and if I'm not messing up my facts here, somebody had taught the little girl how to play stickball, and she didn't know how to play it before she went missing that day.
I,
So
I, I read about that a little bit about it today. I can't remember her first name, but yeah, I know which story you're talking about. I ran into that today.
so I wonder if Bigfoot in general. I mean, we've always heard that they've kidnapped children and eat children and all that kind of stuff. I guess that sells more newspapers, but I wonder if they do have just a thing where they want to protect something that's vulnerable like that, or was it a female? Could it possibly been a female Sasquatch that took care of this little boy here?
And it could be, and the other thing that you mentioned too would be divine intervention, and that depends on what a person believes. But
Sure.
to say that it couldn't have been a bear because we don't know bears to do that kind of thing, well, man, strange things happen.
No
And
kidding.
if that boy, it was not his time, obviously, then who's to say that I don't like to use the word impossible on many things, but yeah, I would definitely, if I was to lean toward Sasquatch, I would definitely believe this far quicker than I believe the horror stories, and you got to remember that a lot of those horror stories that came from uh, native lore and such, those were to try and keep the women and children close to camp. And
Yeah. Well, our parents did us the same way.
yeah,
There's an old story about I think they called it the sack man, and that how if the kids got out after dark, he'd get you and put you in a sack and stuff like that. It just I told stuff like that to kind of keep you close to home when it got dark when you're little.
well, what we had on the mountain was they used to call him the hobo or the tramp, and they said that he was. They figured he was mute because of the strange screams that he couldn't talk, and he would make all these strange screams. Now, that was he would have to be 300 years old because that story had been had been handed down for generations and generations. But I think what if there was any truth to it at all, that ended up being a Sasquatch, because that was right where I had my first sighting. So to me, I think there was some truth to that, but I think they were confused about it. But yeah, to say that no, this is not what bears do, this is not what Sasquatch do. We weren't there, but somehow that little boy is fine, and thank God he is. But to just throw everything out that, well, we don't understand bears to act that way. Well, one, the bear is not going to be in their right mind because they're still half asleep from being in hibernation. And but how did the bear get him through all that deep water and then just
Right.
up and
Well,
disappear?
another thing too about bears, I don't know exactly how rough the winters are in that part of North Carolina. I know here in our part of Kentucky, sometimes our winters are kind of mild, and so bears don't really hibernate, but their food sources are still, they're not don't have many in that time of the year. So to think that maybe if it was a bear, you would still think even if their winters were mild, that the bear would still be hungry. I know of that a mother bear will eat her cubs if there's no food sources. if she's really desperate, she'll eat her own cubs. So to think that a bear could take care of this child here for 3 days. So like you say, it could be divine intervention that we don't understand or don't know about, or it could have been a Sasquatch. One thing that I always wonder is maybe somebody did it. Maybe Leo. Why didn't somebody have the kid draw a picture of the bear, or that way we would have known what it looked like and how big it was and things like that.
Well, that's the thing. It seemed like they wanted to. They did their best to absolutely dismiss this, even with the mother saying no. If this is what my boy said, this is what happened. She couldn't explain it any better than what we can right now. But she said, no, this is what my boy said, and this is what my boy meant. So uh, it didn't seem like they're at all interested in doing anything like that. And like I said, now some of the articles have completely removed the bear thing. Like, don't talk about it. And I found comments online today of people that have been noticing that over the last 2 years, is that the bear part of it just keeps getting.
Well,
But keep in mind, the
another
FBI was
question
there.
too. That's right. The FBI was there. Another question I'd like to ask you, and maybe you might have a little insight in on it, Leo, is would a 3-year-old understand the concept of a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot, or would he refer to it as a bear?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I think that maybe with the FBI being there, NCIS being there, I think the possibilities there. They wanted this shut down and quieted down as fast as possible. Otherwise, they would have done just that and said, "Can you draw? Can you show us what the bear did? Can you show us what the bear looked like?" So we don't know that didn't happen, but we know it didn't go public if it did.
Well, I think me and you both are on the same page. We both understand that the government, maybe not all parts of government, but certain parts of government know Bigfoot is out there.
Well, and I say the same thing every time, is that when people say the government knows, well, yes, they do, but and I know that from personal experience, but it's not to say that it's the government knows. That makes it sound like everybody in government knows.
Not
I don't
everybody.
think that no. Those who need to know, no. Other than that, it's not. Everybody in government, because somebody would have come out by now. Well, more people would have come out by now and said, you know, said more than what they have. But those that need to know, they know.
And I think we're both on the same page too, thinking that the government does put out bad information about Bigfoot and conceal and hide and cover up. So it wouldn't be a big stretch to think that they wanted to remove the bear element out of this story and the Bigfoot element out of this story. Uh, because if they do ever admit publicly that Bigfoot's out there, I'm sure they'll want everybody to be afraid of it and to think it's a killing people and all that kind of stuff. I wouldn't want to say, hey, it saved a 3-year-old child that was going to die.
I have a list of probably 5 people, and I'm being extremely kind, but and I'm not going to mention their names on here because that's not what we're about on here. But there's about 5 people that I strongly suggest that are in the Bigfoot community to do just that, because
I agree with you.
according to how they act and according to what they say, there would be no other reason for them to be in it, because this is all nonsense, but yet they completely, it's their whole life.
All right.
So why be here spreading things if you had, no reason to do so? It's a ridiculous idea to you, but your whole life is engrossed in this subject. That makes me a little suspicious.
Well, the good part about this story is that the child was actually found alive, and a lot of times that's not the case if they ever find them at all. They just don't. There's usually when it's a child, there's so many uh, avenues that they can go down as far as even sex trafficking to just animal attacks. Just there's a lot of avenues for a child that maybe even some adults it could go to as well. But at least this story had a happy ending, where a lot of them actually don't.
Well, and that's the thing. This was a perfect storm for this to be a absolute tragedy. It could have gone and should have really gone the other direction, but thank God it didn't. But it could have very well, very easily. We could be talking about a tragedy right now, but yeah, the government involvement and all of that makes me very suspicious when I hear, because it only took a matter of, as soon as the story broke and that he was found, and as soon as he mentioned bear, there were Bigfoot people right there immediately.
Oh yeah.
And as soon as that happened, that's when they tried to downplay it.
Well, we got people in the community that would do that. Every missing hiker is Bigfoot. Every person that's killed out in the woods by whatever, it's always a dog man. I mean, some people automatically go to that, but this one here actually has some very mysterious elements because the little boy was found safe. He got into an area where he should not have been able to get to, and he described a bear taking care of him. Really, he should have probably, if he went out through the deep water, he should have drowned. So he didn't. It was cold. He should have had hypothermia. He didn't. So something was going on.
And there's theories out there that he ended up on. When you were mentioning about the weather in North Carolina, I guess when bears do semi-hibernate there, they're kind of in and out. So people were saying, well, maybe he happened to find one that was basically asleep, not quite, but basically asleep, and he didn't mind that the little boy curled up on him or whatever. But that doesn't explain how he got over that water and into those briars where he was at.
That's true. Well, have we done about all we can do with this one for now?
Pretty much. I mean, unless as the kid gets a little older, he comes forward with some more information, or a family member does. I think this one's pretty well been hushed up. Whether it had anything to do with Bigfoot or not, I think it had enough people had suggested it that certain authorities got a little edgy and tried to tune that down as fast as they possibly could.
Well, a pencil and a piece of paper could have made a difference in this story.
It could have.
Something simple, and who knows? Maybe they did that, and he drew something that wasn't a bear.
Well, that's the thing. That's why I say we didn't get to see the picture. That doesn't mean that they didn't go ahead and do this, but it was never released to the public. But you'd have to be pretty stunned to not attempt to get the boy to do that, right? I mean,
yeah.
So I figure it probably did happen, but we won't know.
We'll never know. That's for sure. We had a question in the chat that I want to address, and it's the giant of Afghanistan, where the military supposedly killed a giant, and they asked what I thought about that. I think it's a totally a discredit to the subject of giants of Afghanistan, of the military. I think it's totally bull, made up garbage that keeps festering in the internet, because there's no way that happened without somebody having a picture of it. It's just impossible. So that's my feelings on it. And if you don't agree with me, I love you anyways. So do you have any thoughts on the giant the military killed in Afghanistan?
No different from yours.
Yeah, it's just total garbage. This stuff just keeps cycling through and through and through, and it just bogs down good information and buries it with bad information and fake stories. And I don't have much of a stomach for that sometimes.
It's like a lot of the stuff that comes out of Russia. You got to take a lot of that with a grain of salt, because they're over there. They're not above doing this kind of thing for tourism and to make money and stuff like that. So,
man, I almost went on a rant there, and I'm a guy that don't never rant.
Oh, I think we could both go on a rant about Russia, but we won't.
Well, not necessarily Russia, the giant story, because
Oh, okay. Well,
uh, which there's been other, and I do believe in giants. Don't get me wrong. I just don't believe our military killed one that's been hiding in a cave for the last 50 years or whatever. Just that's the thing with some of these stories, and even some of the YouTube channels that you go on. Uh, they make up a story, but they don't tell you that it's a made up story. They want you to believe it, and I think it's just a bunch of. I don't care for. I like good stories, but don't try to pass it off as real. Say, hey, this come from my mind. I made this up, but it's awesome.
well, that's the thing. You could just as easily put it out as, these are my thoughts. This is my short story. Hope you
Right.
enjoy it. And
I have some of those too. I've actually got a pretty interesting story that I've been working on over the years, which on and off. I hope to publish that book someday, and it's totally a work of fiction, but I'm finding it entertaining to write. But I guess also I forgot to tell you guys tonight at the opening of the show, we are going to be giving away a DVD tonight, and I guess you want to see the front of it. It's missing the Dennis Martin case because that is our next subject. Is the Dennis Martin case. Uh, that's a little film I did back, gosh, I don't know, 2017, something like that. So we're going to give away that DVD tonight, and it's only available to people who live in the United States. Sorry, though, if anyone's listening that is outside of the United States. And
now, are
what we're
you
going,
telling me that you can have a Canadian co-host, but you can't ship to Canada? I know better than that. You ship me stuff.
man,
Now, that's not fair.
inflation, buddy, inflation.
Mm-hmm.
But it costs so much. I could probably do you a digital download. But I'm going to talk just a little bit about that film before we actually get into the subject of Dennis Martin. Uh, that film is one that I am probably most satisfied with as far as conveying the message and what I wanted to get across. Making films is difficult sometimes because you don't have money to make the film the way you want to. And this film here, it turned out okay for what I had to do. I'm really satisfied with it, and I based everything on there off the final reports that were submitted that ended the case. But really, the case is not over, and we're going to talk about that a little bit too. Let me get a share screen up here for you guys because I know you'll want to see it. Let me see here. Give me just a second. I'm a little bit old and swole. No. But a very interesting case the Dennis Martin case is. Uh, I've been interested in it for many, many years.
I
And
think
it's,
this was one of, if not the first movie of yours that I saw.
well, now some people have liked it. I used a lot of local talent to do the film, as far as voiceovers and things like that. And I had some people get involved in it that were above uh, my pay grade. I mean, they had money to pay for a a psychic to try to make uh, some contact stuff on that, which was interesting. All right, I got one more thing here I need to get to. And
I'm just checking the chat here.
okay.
Wendy's here. Duke's here. Well, Becca's here. I know because she's in the other room.
Oh,
Mary is here. Duke again. And what if it's all true? And
oh, we're fixing to get into that, Christy, about the missing person and are not Sasquatch. Matter of fact, I would say probably less than 1% are Sasquatch. That's my opinion.
yeah,
But
I'm not. I would. That's the kind of thing that I won't rule out that it never
right,
happens. But come on, this the certain people are making a lot of cash off of a whole bunch of sensationalizing and just adjusting little facts here and a little fact there. And yeah, if they wanted us, we'd all be gone. So that's very rare in my opinion.
I think so too. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to our next topic, which is the Dennis Martin case. And I'm going to give you just a little bit of information on that, and then we're going to talk in more detail. That's little Dennis there in the picture. Okay, Dennis Lloyd Martin. He was born June the 20th, 1962. He disappeared on June the 14th, 1969, in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee at the age of 6. He was almost 7 years old, just a few days before his birthday. The search effort was the most extensive in the park's history, involving approximately 1,400 searchers in a 56 square mile area. Here's something that you may not know about Dennis. Dennis was a special education student at the time of his disappearance. He was described as being husky and healthy, and he liked hiking and camping, and he wasn't particularly fearful of the outdoors. Dennis was visiting the Great Smoky Mountains with his father, his grandfather, his older brother, and 2 cousins. They actually lived in Knoxville, Tennessee. The family had hiked to Cades Cove, then to Russell Field, and camped there overnight. The next day, they hiked to Spence Field, which is near the Appalachian Trail. They planned to spend the night there, but Dennis was playing some hide and go seek with the other boys, and he ducked in behind the bush, and he was basically never seen again. The time frame was roughly from 2 o'clock to about 4:30 in the day. Somewhere between that time frame is when he went missing. There are several theories which we're going to talk about in more detail, but I want to give you just a little bit of overview on some of them. The first theory was that he just became lost and exposure to the elements and stuff, and he most likely died. The second theory, which we've already talked about this a little bit in the first case, was that he was attacked by a hungry bear, which is very possible in the Smoky Mountains, but we'll get into why that may not be true of what happened to him. And this is the one I find interesting, was that he was abducted by somebody and taken out of the park. Now, this was the theory that his father thought was most likely too. That's the one that he was kind of a supporter of, was that somebody actually kidnapped him in the park, and maybe that was just his way of coping with the fact that the child was gone. That's my opinion. And here's another interesting thing that made Dennis's dad go along with this theory, was that a guy by the name of Harold Key, he had seen and heard a man who was enormous, and he heard him scream, heard a sickening scream in the area, and the man was, his words was unkempt, which means he was a rough-looking fella, maybe not cleaned up. Right where the screams had come from, that's where he seen this guy. So that kind of led Dennis's dad to believe that Dennis was taken, abducted out of the park. And it also fostered the idea, because people don't go all the way through and listen or read what Mr. Key said, it fostered the idea that the possibility that Dennis was taken by a Bigfoot, because this man was described as being large and unkempt, kind of a burly-like guy. But if you actually read the rest of his statement, Mr. Key actually seen that man run and get into a white car and drive away. So that's probably not accurate to think that was a Bigfoot that had him. But Leo, have you got any thoughts about the Dennis Martin case? There's a whole lot of things I want to talk about on this.
Well, I
It's,
think I think
go ahead.
I think you're right. I think the father, that would be the easiest thing for a parent to accept, wouldn't it?
I think so.
And when it comes right down to it, the most evil critters on this earth are people. So
Yeah.
now, as far as people jumping on the bandwagon of, well, this guy that was seen was, rough looking and this and that. Well, yeah, but he was also seen getting in a car. So,
Right.
you know,
Well, I think initially too, some he had thought maybe that the guy was a moonshiner, which was, I mean, it still goes on today, but it was a lot more common back in the late '60s for somebody to have a moonshine still hid back in the mountains somewhere or something like that. I wouldn't think they'd have it there, but you never know.
I'll tell you, when I got down there in 2014, I I was actually worried because of what we see on TV and the movies, and I was actually worried that when we went out in the mountains and that, are we going to come up on somebody still? And my niece, through marriage, said nobody does that anymore. They just build it in their garage now. There's no, and she was right. I saw two stills while I was there, really nice setups, and but they stopped doing that a long time ago. So,
Well, now we still have some of it in our area. They do it outdoors. Actually,
and I think the ones that do prefer to.
I got a YouTube video up of an old one that my grandfather used to run. Uh, which they had it under. There's a stream run right by it and a big rock, and they had it right up under a big rock. But it's not unheard of for people to have moonshine stills and be back in the mountains. So that could have been. I can understand Mr. Key's thinking on that. But what people may not understand that the military was really heavily involved in looking for Dennis Martin. Uh, we even had people here in my local county out of a rescue squad out of Millsboro that looked for this little boy. Uh, Actually, I think I have a list of just some of the groups that were involved in looking. This is some of the pictures, as you can see, of the military looking for this kid. And the thing is, about I don't exactly know the time frame, but right after he went missing, it came a real heavy rain, and then it rained like 3 inches in just about like an hour or something. So they thought maybe that could have washed away some of the tracks and some of the evidence. But now I do know at one point they found a small foot track, what they thought was a child, that had a one shoe on, one shoe off type thing scenario. And some of them wanted to blame it on the researchers, but there was no children, no young children in any of the search parties that were looking for Dennis. So most likely that was his foot track, or it could have possibly been another person who had been visiting the park, a few days before, day of, or something like that.
So, so basically, what happened was it was the description of the man that was seen in the woods is where the whole Bigfoot
That that's
thing
where
is.
some of it come from. Yes, I think also what is the idea of where it was located at, because Spence Bills is pretty remote, and they'd already camped overnight at another area. And the Smoky Mountains is actually very large. I don't know if you've ever been to it. I've been in it quite a bit. I'd like to do some more, but I think the idea of the unkept man was part of the one of the factors that played into that, the remoteness of the area and the size of the area in the mountain area. I think that played a part. And then of course you got a few people, they always, anytime someone goes missing in the park or something like that, they always point to Bigfoot, and that's just not the case. A lot of those people are found, most of those people are found later on. Usually they're dead, but they do find them. This is some of the agencies that supplied search personnel that's on the screen. As you can see, so this is just a very small part of them. The Cherokee Indian Reservation actually took part in that too, which I thought was rather interesting. And Tennessee Highway Patrol, of course, Boy Scouts, fire departments, hike clubs. I mean, these are people. You take like the Smoky Mountain Hiking Club there. These people knew that mountain. Was probably one of their main hiking areas. So they knew the mountain well. They knew the lay of the land, and but they found no evidence of this kid. Some said, well, one of the theories was that he was attacked by animals, but there was no clothing found, there was no blood, no scuffle places, or anything like that ever found that would lend credence to that theory. This is kind of interesting right here. On the left, of course, you see Dennis Martin when he went missing, and the other picture is what he would look like at age 53. This was several years ago when this was made, so they kind of did an age progression on him a little bit.
And this is one of the things that I read about too when preparing for tonight's show. There are quite a few people out there that think that this little boy up and took off and started a whole new life for himself, but that's a bit of a stretch.
Well, my thing is that and it's a very possibility that somebody kidnapped this kid.
Totally different story if someone did, took him.
Somebody, he was so young, and by their own articles, they said that he was a special ed kid. Now, I don't know what his learning capacity was or anything like that, but at age 6, if somebody abducted him and started telling him, hey, your name's John, well, by the time he got 14 or 15, all he knew himself by was be John. So he could possibly, if somebody did abduct him, he may not even know himself as Dennis Martin anymore. He may be John Brown or something like that. He don't, so it's very possible.
Oh, it is in a kidnapping situation like that. That's completely different. But these people were, this kid, he got lost and then he got his way out and he started a whole new life. And really, I don't think a 6-year-old is quite that stressed that he's gonna.
No, especially one that is in special education, and there's nothing wrong with special education. There's sometimes people just start slow and they end up okay, and people need help, and that's fine. I don't know, like I said, I don't know the capacity of this child. One interesting thing that I heard that I don't think it's true, but you never know. Somebody had made the remark that they thought maybe that his dad had killed him. I don't think that would have. If he was going to kill him, I don't think he would have took him hiking and done it the way it turned out. I don't, if he was just going to kill him.
Well, with that theory, that's an awful lot of effort. But then on the other side of that, maybe he needed that time to work up the guts to do it. But that doesn't feel, that really, from what I've seen and what I've read, that doesn't feel right at all.
Well, plus he had other people with him. If I was going to take you back in the mountains to kill you, I wouldn't want to take an audience.
Well, I'll remember that. Your invite to come up here and go in the woods. I'm taking that back. Unless we get people to go with us.
With me anymore.
You're like a foot taller than me. I can't take you.
Which I do take people out Bigfooting, but I just, maybe not anymore. They won't want to go now.
Well, as long as you keep bringing them back, you'll be all right.
But you think about this: the FBI was involved on the kidnapping part of it, where they thought maybe somebody had kidnapped this kid. The FBI come in, and of course they talked to a few people and things like that. But there was never enough evidence or even a suggestion of evidence to really go that route. Even though I know, like I say, Dennis's dad, goes by that theory. That was his main theory. That I guess he's trying to keep hope alive, kind of thing. To me, that's what I want to do. I wouldn't want to think that my son was out there dead. I would rather think that somebody abducted him and I would eventually get him back at some point. So that's probably the scenario there. But the FBI never could find enough evidence to even really open a real good abduction case or anything like that on it.
Well, we both enjoy, like Becca and I know you do enjoy true crime and these type of
100%.
things, and it's very common for a parent to say, until you prove to me that my child is dead, that I believe they're still alive, and until you prove it to me, I'm not going to accept it. So that's very, very common.
A
They,
recent thing I heard about, which is kind of new. This picture on the screen is from the national park. This was one of the final documents on the case. This is where they was designating September 13th as the last day to officially, look for him, which I'm sure people went on after that. But recently I heard this is the actual initial report for when he first started missing. Uh, it's got the time down at 4:30, so there's a little bit of discrepancy there because the original reports say between 2 and 4 o'clock, but as you can see, the actual document says 4:30. I don't know how many people's actually seen this document. I was able to. I downloaded PDFs of all of it. I don't remember where I got it for sure. I don't remember if it was on the Smoky Mountain side or if it was on uh, some Knoxville Police Department or something. I can't remember exactly where I got it, but I've got a whole bunch of this kind of stuff. But like I say, one of the recent theories that I heard about what happened to Dennis was that he fell in a sinkhole, and that's why they can't find him. But we don't really have that kind of problem in this general area. I mean, occasionally we'll get a small sinkhole, but I've never seen any reports of sinkholes over in Smoky Mountains or anything like that. But that was one of the newest theories that I heard about what might have happened to him.
well, and I mean, I wouldn't know because I've never been in the area, but uh, sinkhole, that's again without anything else to go on besides, you know, throwing darts at something until it's something sticks. It's, I don't know. I would have to see some more evidence before I'm just gonna say, yeah, that's more likely than anything else.
That he fell in a sinkhole.
Yeah, I don't think that's. I mean, who's to say? It's possible, but likely. That's possible and likely are two different things.
Well, if you notice this headline here in this newspaper, his father actually led the search, and a lot of the search groups for him. So, I mean, the theory that he killed his own child, I just don't think that's. I mean, I guess if he did, it would be easy to lead people away, but I just don't feel like he did. Uh, but what happened to him? What do you think might have happened to him?
Well, the father being guilty in some way, that's not, again, go back to the what's common in true crime, what's common in murders like this. If a parent did it, they're usually acting, well, they can't act. That's the problem. So they either overact and give themselves away, or they just don't seem to have any emotional response to it. So if he's out there leading the people through the woods to find his son, if as long as he's not overdoing it, and you know, to me that doesn't seem likely. But how does a child just gone?
Right. Well, there's a couple interesting developments that happened over the years of this case. I hear something outside. I have no idea what it is. One thing was that several years after this case, I know what it is now. It's the wind. Several years after this case, a ginsainer had found bones of what he said was a small child at a place called Big Hollow, I believe it was. I think it's what it was called. Uh, but he was illegally hunting ginseng on the park, so he waited quite a while to report these bones. Well, once he actually did, he led a team back to where he said he found the bones, but there was no evidence that there was any bones there. So So some said he just made the story up. Uh,
Yeah, but it wasn't even years later that he waited years before he came
right.
forward and said this.
I
Yeah,
think
that's
it's
what I
like
thought.
3 years or something.
Yeah, that's what something like that. When I was checking it over today, yeah, it was quite a long time. We just didn't wait a couple weeks.
Well, now most of this that I'm trying to remember, I'm pulling it from just from where I worked on the case and studied the case over the years. I've studied it for a long time. Uh, the thing on your screen right there, if you look, this is some of the squads that participated in the search, and if you look, you'll see Millsboro, Kentucky, which is here in Bell County, and that's my area. So there's a bunch of people, you know. So I've had an interest in this a long time. Some people wanted to act like that my interest just recently developed in this, but no, I've been a long time. But to think that a ginsainer would be out there on the park, which I know it happens. If you remember I don't know, about 3 years ago, you may have seen it. There was a guy, a father and son, and the son became lost in the Great Smoky Mountains, and he waited several days to tell that he was lost because him and his son was on the park hunting ginseng illegally, which it's federal land. You're in trouble. You're going to get in trouble for that. So I think they ended up finding him, and he was okay. Another interesting thing about the Dennis Martin case that a lot of people do not know, and some people have challenged me on it, but it's actually in the final documents, and I don't know if I got a picture of it or not because I only took a few screenshots. Uh, Several psychics contacted the police and the researchers and things like that, and some of them had tried to pinpoint where Dennis was. Some of them said that that he fell and hung up in trees, and one of them said he was in a culvert. I mean, there were several. One of the psychics was a real popular. I think it's a woman. I can't think of her name, but she was a real popular, uh, uh, famous psychic who got involved in the case. And from my understanding and what the final document said was that all these predictions and clues that were given, that they actually followed up on all of them and checked, but none of them actually panned out.
And that's another common thing with calling in psychics. The police don't usually want to admit that they've resorted to that, but I mean, when you're pulling your hair out, you don't know what else to do, and they're offering to do it for free, and they're offering this and that. They do sometimes go out and check these things out, and unfortunately they don't usually find much.
Well, to me, I think it was kind of this case was kind of interesting because of the heavy military presence. And it didn't take no time for me. I think that might have been another reason why people thought that Bigfoot was involved, is because of the heavy military in there looking around. Uh, that could have helped the idea that maybe Bigfoot took this kid.
When you bring in authorities like that, and especially military, there is the potential. I don't know what I don't know necessarily understand the connection myself, but it does always seem like that, though, doesn't it? To bring in the military, there's a Bigfoot story here.
Yeah, yeah, it seemed like that. You wouldn't think though, which the times were a little bit different, I guess, then than they are now. You wouldn't think that if a child went missing, they would immediately call in the National Guard and what's National Guard maybe, but uh, not the military in this fashion with so many. And that just seemed like that stood out to me.
Yeah, it does seem like a. Well, I mean, this is '69 too, so that's now with technology and everything. We have, if we need a search party, bing bang boom. But in 1969, things weren't as easily accessible and couldn't have those boots on the ground as fast as what
Right.
they can today. So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
bit odd.
Well, back then, I guess we was worried a lot about going to the moon or faking the moon landing, whatever how you want to look at it. But to my knowledge, there's never been any further evidence of what happened to Dennis Martin. Uh, no, it wasn't Sylvia Brown. This this was this woman was for the time frame was actually a little older. I can't think of her name. You may be able to Google it or something. I can't remember her name. But as far as I know, there's never been any evidence found or any more clues really about Dennis Martin. I know during the time he was missing and they was looking for him, there was there was a little boy in the park that was dressed almost identical to what Dennis had on, and they went and thought that was him. And they had to get, if I remember correctly, they had to get the little boy to change clothes and stuff so it wouldn't throw the searchers off, because he was there with his parents and that type of thing. So they thought they had found him. That was early in the search show. But did the rain play a big part in it? I know it rained like 3 inches, and I think it was an hour, a couple hours, or something like that. And maybe that played a part in hiding the evidence of maybe a animal attack or a slip and fall type thing where he fell and hurt himself, or what you. I know there's poisonous snakes or venomous snakes, or how you want to, or what you want to call them, rattlesnakes, copperheads, that type of thing. He could easily got bitten by a snake and passed out, and but you would think at some point they would have found him and found some kind of clue of where he was at.
Well, I mean, it's I'm sure it's happened to you. It's happened to me a million times where you're walking through the woods and you see one little tiny piece of fabric and you think you really don't think anything of it, but it came from somewhere. But I mean, and that's several years, several storms, and it's probably something completely innocent. Somebody took their shirt off or
Yeah.
to soak it in the creek to cool off or whatever, and uh, you just got up and walked away or whatever. But so yeah, the rain would wash some evidence away. But if you would think if something, I hate to put it this way, but was torn apart by a larger animal, there would be cloth,
Right.
there'd be clothing and stuff in a reasonably close area.
Well, even something like a shoe.
Yeah.
A shoe's it'll last for a long time out in the mountains. It's not going to rot away like say a bone or something like that's going to get eaten and rot away and covered up and that type of stuff. A shoe or something like that's going to last longer than even like a shirt or something like that,
Mhm.
which is it's kind of odd that they've never found anything like that to me. But in the mountains, occasionally I'll find a bone of a deer or something like that, but you don't find many bones. They go away real fast.
It's not something people have asked me about that before too, about finding animal bones and that. I have. I've actually found a piece of a human skull roughly that big from someone who had committed suicide in my grandmother's house, and they back then when they cleaned up a crime scene, they basically got the body out of there, and you were responsible for the cleanup. There was no, so they had taken the mattress with that still had a piece of skull in it, and now that was when I found that piece of skull was probably 30 years after it happened, but that one little tiny piece was still there. But aside from like how many bones have I found of anything in the woods over the years? Not even enough to count. Not even enough
I,
to pay attention to.
I found a few, uh, mostly leg bone
Mhm.
from deer, things like that. They got kind of a funny hinge on them
Yep.
that you can kind of spot those. But I felt one of them was in a creek, so I don't know if that helped preserve it or help destroy it. I really don't know. But if you guys are just joining us in or just coming on to the show, we're talking about missing person cases, and we've been talking about the Dennis Martin case. And this is a film I did, I think in 2017 or something like that. I kind of pieced it together. I'm fairly happy with it. But I want to give a DVD copy of it away tonight. Uh, and I've been debating on how to do it. So I'm just gonna. I got a number in my head that between 1 and 100, everybody at least gets one guess. The closest person to that number will win the DVD. Win the DVD, and I'll even sign it if you want me to. And if you don't, that's cool too. But if you just put your guess between a number between 1 and 100 in the chat, uh, when we get a winner, I'll let you know, and I'll tell you what to do out of that. So just guess away, and ever who's the closest, of course, we'll get you.
We have a 66. We have a 63.
I see a 45 there. Colt 45. But the idea of little Dennis Martin, man, that he was 6 year old, which I guess at 6 year old you kind of let your kids move around a little bit. You don't have to. It's not like we was talking about the case earlier with the little boy and the bear uh, that went missing for 3 days. That was just 3 year old or something. Usually a 6 year old kid, especially if he's been out a lot and hiking, uh, you kind of just let them. You don't want them to wander off very far. But if you got 3 or 4 other people in the party, I imagine that it's pretty easy to just let them run around and play, and maybe get talking about something else or watching nature yourself, and kind of let them get away from you too quick.
Well, I know. I mean, in the rural areas, on the mountain, at 6 years old, we were out. We were going anywhere we wanted, as long as we had. There were certain places we could go by ourselves, but uh, as if we had another kid with us or a couple of kids with us, we were pretty well at 6 years old. We were pretty well allowed to go anywhere we wanted, and like on the mountain.
Well, that's us when we were. I mean, we play out. We'd play out in the yard, which we live back in the mountains kind of anyways. We'd play out in the yard and stuff, and while mom and dad didn't stand and watch over us 24/7, they'd let us get out and ride our bikes and things like that. So if you've had a kid out there that you've took hiking a lot for years, you probably wouldn't think a whole lot about it just walking around with its cousins or whatever, and then next thing you know, they get away from you. Still no winner yet on the DVD. Just keep guessing, and when somebody gets the number, you win a DVD of Dennis missing the Dennis Martin case. Be more than happy to ship it right out to you. Won't cost you a dime.
And I see Ma's in the chat, so it's only for Tom's being mean. It's only for Americans, Ma. I don't know how close you are to the guest, but to the right guest, but it's only for Americans.
Well, it's still good to guess, though. I might make an exception. Who knows?
Well, she guessed 76, and we just got a 26.
Man, any more guesses? Any more? DVD and DVD. Dennis Martin case. One thing, let me tell you about this about the movie. I alluded to it a little bit earlier. I had a lady come forward who wants to remain anonymous, and she paid for a West Coast highly sought after psychic to try to make contact and find out information about Dennis Martin. And this was back when I'd done the film back in, I think it was 2017. Don't hold me to that. And I was sent a full transcript of the psychic, what all she said, and we use it in the film. Of course, we use voice actors for her part and the other parts. What are we guessing? We are guessing a number between 1 and 100 to win a DVD copy of Missing the Dennis Martin Case. My award-winning film. I actually did win an award for it. No kidding. But that's something we included in the film. was the psychic interaction and what she was able to deem, which I thought, uh, possibly could be some new information. I don't know. I know. Uh, yes, yeah, that's a little too much. Yeah, go ahead and guess another one, Karen. I'll say this: out of all the guesses, we've had one that got real close. How's that? That's a clue, maybe.
Well, yeah, but the problem is the guesses have been widespread. So
Okay, let's make it a little easier. 1 to 50. Guess. Everybody guess again. One between 1 and 50. And thanks for the new subscribe. I can't see what it is because I got my thing blocking it. But thanks for the new subscribe. Uh, so what did I do with the DVD? Right here. Got the DVD right here. See, I'll gladly sign it for you if you want me to. Just keep guessing between 1 and 50. Come on. Oh, come on. Let's go, George. I kind of like giving stuff away.
So we've got 18 and 42.
Come on, keep guessing. Come on.
When someone mentioned earlier about Sylvia Brown, I don't know how big Sylvia Brown was in '69, though.
No, I think that was before she really,
Yeah, before she really took off.
before she really got it. Man, you guys are hitting all close round to it, and I'm telling you. Any more guesses? At this point right now, I got two people that's really close that are actually in a tie away from the number. So that's good. Come on, keep guessing. Guess again. If you've already guessed once, guess again. Come on, Karen. Dennis Martin. I wonder if that's a case that will ever be solved. Some of these cases, which we have a lot of them around here, that I don't think they'll ever be solved. I don't think we'll ever know.
No, when there's absolutely nothing, unless they do have something and they're keeping it quiet because they figure that only, in a lot of cases they'll keep things quiet because only the perpetrator would know. So, but unless there's something like that, then we're never gonna know.
Right.
It's fun to speculate, but at the same time, when people are speculating, they can take it from interesting to completely absurd.
Yeah, that's true. Come on, Wendy, guess. We'll go another round.
Wendy's gonna guess and give it to someone in the States. That's a Maritimer right there. Wendy's a Nova Scotian too.
Yeah,
that's what we do.
I've seen her some stuff before, if I'm not mistaken. I think she bought a book off of me or something back about a year ago.
She's certainly been a supporter of the crypto crew.
Definitely. Oh man, she put a picture up earlier, and snow. Oh, I got all that snow. We was 63 degrees today, so it was really nice here.
Oh, it was beautiful here today too, but it hasn't been. I mean, it was warm all day, but there's still snow on the ground.
Okay, I'm gonna give everybody one more clue. You ready? Let's cut it between 1 and 30. That narrows it down. Guess a number between 1 and 30. Yeah, you did get a mask off of me. That's right. You sure did. I remember that. But I'm ready for spring. I know sometimes we get to mow our grass and it'll start snowing later. The next few days.
Well, that's the brutal thing about having a nice warm day like today, and we're supposed to have again tomorrow, is it gets you all jazzed up for spring, and then 3 days later, you get hit by another snowstorm.
Yeah.
Spring is nowhere near close for us yet.
We'll be. I think we're supposed to get back cold this weekend, and then we'll be okay. One thing I would like to say, if anybody has any information on this case here, or the next case we're going to talk about here just in a few minutes, contact your local authorities, and don't be afraid to call them. Tell them, hey, I seen this or that, even if other local people's missing in your area.
Any cases that you think you might know something about, or anything, any cases that we have or will cover on here, if it ever led to something like this being solved, imagine what that would feel like. That would be an amazing feeling.
Well, as far as Dennis Martin, it's been so many years now.
Yeah, I don't.
Unless someone was to come forward and say, hey, I did it, or I know what happened to him, or something like that, I just don't think it'll probably ever be solved.
Wendy's firing out the left, right, and center. She's got 9 there. She's got 13 there.
Come on, keep guessing. Somebody keep guessing. We're guessing a number between 1 and 30 to win a DVD. 1 and 30. Oh, I got a winner. I got a winner. All right. Let me find the name. I guess it is. Let me see. Right here is the winner. Hold on just a second. Let me get back to it. That's the winner right there. Do we see it? Right here. And can y'all see that in the corner?
Yep.
Jermac. I think that's how you say it, right? Jermac is the winner. If you will look in the description, the email is there where you can contact me, and if you'll send me a message, and I will get your address and stuff, and I will send that right out to you. And congratulations, you have won our first contest. That was fun. I like doing it. Maybe we just start a contest channel, Leo, where we just give stuff away.
I can't afford to give nothing away, man.
Buddy,
I work for you.
You can't take it with you, buddy. Slightly used paper towel. All righty. So we got the winner of the DVD.
Wendy deserves an honorable mention for her.
Yes, she really tried. She
did.
Okay, I do have one more case that I want to get to tonight. This is a local case. It's not very old. Well, if I can get the thing to open up. Okay. Man, the only thing about using this laptop, it seems like the text and stuff is so small. Either that or I'm getting an old one. You know what I mean?
A little bit of column A and a little bit of column B, maybe.
You're probably right. Okay, so we've got a DVD winner. Now I'm going to share the screen with you guys. And this is a local missing person. And I have wrote down some information. My nose is I chewed some chewing gum. My nose trying to run on me. And I've got some information about the case I also want to share. I wrote it down. Let's see here. There we go. This girl's name is Jessica Caldwell. At the time of her disappearance, she was 38-year-old. She's from here in Hewlin, Kentucky. She has not been seen or heard from since June the 15th, of 2018. 125 pound, 5'4", black hair, brown eyes, has a tattoo of a cross with vines on her back shoulder. I've actually helped look for this person, and I'll get into some of that just in a little bit, but let me finish telling you a little bit more about her, about the case. she had sent a text to her family, and it led the family to believe that she actually feared for her life. Uh, her last text to her family was, "I'm okay though, and I'll check in every day to let you know. If I don't by 6 p.m., assume something is wrong." She does not have a driver's license, and at the time, she did not have a car. And this lady, uh, her and her boyfriend at the time, or her boyfriend, I guess, but she's been with him a long time. They live probably within a quarter of a mile of my house. I know them both. Know them both. Uh, and this girl was actually seen. Last report of her was she was seen on some of our near some of our property, about maybe a quarter mile, half a mile away. Uh, the state police and some rescue squad people, searchers, were on our property looking for the girl. Uh, so, of course, I went down there. Being a guy that gets out in the mountains a lot, I went down there and looked for her. In that area, there had been some strip mining. At the time, there was 2 or 3 old strip ponds there. Uh, so, of course, we checked those. It's next to a creek. I think I might even have a picture of another picture of the area. I'm not for sure. Yeah, there is the area. Uh, if you can see that little road right there, that goes over into our property. And she was seen somewhere around her. Lee Andrews Branch is where she was last reported seen at. So there's a creek that runs over here to the left, or actually to the left of the road, which is right here, Puckett's Creek. And along that creek bed it's very soft and sandy. There's an old coal mine opening fairly close there, even with the creek. So we got in there and looked for her. Never found anything. She's not been heard or seen since. She does have children. The initial thought was that somebody had killed her. There was only a handful of suspects. The main one was her boyfriend, but she'd been with him for a long time, and he never, done anything. So I don't, that could be totally speculation, but that was who the police said was one of the suspects.
And it always is. They have to.
They have to.
They have
well,
to.
he is a rough customer. Don't get me wrong. I know him fairly well. He's a rough customer, or can be. He's in prison right now for totally unrelated crime. But now him and this girl had been together for a very long time. One time they lived in the woods. Probably, I'll say, if you go to the top of the mountain, which is about 2 or 3 miles, and there's nothing up through there, then you go. It was probably 7 or 8 miles deep, where somebody had built an old cabin, and they lived in it for a long time, and they would dig ginseng and various roots and herbs and sell them and stuff like that's what they did. But then they got this house down here below me, and the girl went missing, and they've not been able to find her. No signs of her at all. To my knowledge, there's been no clothing, no text, nothing to give a clue where she went. Some had suggested that she had got away from the boyfriend and started her life over, but she has children, and you'd think if she did that, she would have contacted them or even her parents. But she didn't have a car, and she didn't have a driver's license. So that's to me, that's kind of throws that part of it out of the window.
Yeah, I don't. That there's nothing to me that would that would point to that. Do you know if she would be possibly related to, I know, a couple of Caldwells down in New Zion?
I really don't know. Actually, my aunt is married to a Caldwell, but I think it's a different set. There's no relation there to Jessica. But now the state police and things like that have been involved looking for her pretty heavily, and it's been on TV. Uh, but
And one of the problems, though, I would imagine, uh, with her cheeks, she's got quite a common facial structure. You know what I mean, with her cheeks and that.
right.
So I would imagine they've probably gotten a lot of tips that didn't go anywhere, because that's. I know I've never seen her before, but I've seen a ton of people that have a similar facial structure. So I would
I
imagine they've
also,
gotten some
well,
tips
I
that
also think
didn't
she
go
didn't
anywhere.
have any teeth. She didn't have teeth. That's pretty common around here.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, People sadly get on drugs and they get their teeth pulled to get the medicine. I don't know if that's what happened to her or not, but I know she didn't have any teeth. So that, of course, if they do ever find any remains or anything, it makes it difficult
Mm-hmm.
to identify. And now they did about, let's say, I guess it was about a year ago, they had found a skull that initially they thought it might be her, but it had washed way down the creek and way down next to down in the river. But I don't. Turned out it wasn't. I don't think they ever really identified who that was. But one thing that kind of got me on this case, and I've looked for this girl many times. Uh, they thought she had been killed and buried somewhere on our property, and I went down there many times and looked, and I found some stuff that I thought was kind of, I'll say, unusual, but it could have been just washed in from from the high waters of the creek or something like that. But I've looked for many times uh, down in the sandy areas and where it'd be easy to dig and things like that. And this girl was small. She wasn't very big. But there are some people who reportedly heard some fighting, some yelling, and that type of stuff before her disappearance. But I don't, that's just basically rumor and things like that. Someone asked, well, Wendy asked about the boyfriend taking a lie detector test. I don't know if that was ever a suggestion because they never did actually hold him on anything. Uh, if I remember correctly, he got in trouble for stealing something later. I mean, this was quite a bit later. That's why I think he's in jail for that. Might have been uh, might have been dynamite or dynamite caps or something like that he stole. But no, they never did hold him or anything in the case. I never had anything on him that I know of. And like I say, they'd been together for a long time, and they seemed like they got along well. They have.
But that's the thing, though. If they're both into drugs to that extent, hearing them fight and argue doesn't necessarily mean anything more than they're either high or they're jonesing and they're cranky and they're in a fight. So being a bad guy doesn't necessarily make you a murderer.
True.
Those texts, those last texts don't sound good.
No, well, she had told him that if she didn't text back by 6 p.m. each evening,
Mm.
that assumed something was wrong. One part of the case that really bothers me, and I don't know why it is this way, they could have brought in cadaver dog and searched our property. Of course, we were more than willing to let them just do whatever they needed to look. But I don't know if it's just the state of Kentucky or if that's how all law enforcement do it. But they would not bring the cadaver dog unless the family would pay for it. They had to have so much X amount of money
How
to pay for
kind.
the cadaver dog, and I just didn't. I don't understand that. Around this same time, we had a boy missing too, general area, not the exact same spot, and done that in the same way. They would not bring in the cadaver dog, which I think they end up finding him in an old pond, old strip mining pond.
Now, see, until you said that, I would have thought they just didn't want to bother because she's a dead druggie, and that's,
Well, no, that
don't spend
happened.
money on a dead druggie. But if this is a routine thing where they just don't bother, there's a problem there.
Well, now that happens in this area. I've had family and friends who were addicts. They died under mysterious circumstances, and that was a half-hearted effort to investigate it because to them that's just one less person they have to deal with. I
One
don't see
less
the next.
person that they have to take to lock up
Yep.
frequently. So yeah, yeah.
And I really feel for this girl's family and her friends. I had another friend who was friends with this girl and her family, a girl I went to school with, who sadly passed away, and I didn't even know it to just about 2 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks ago. She passed away back last April. I didn't even know she was sick. I think she had cancer, and she was in contact with this girl's father, and I got some information that way. And if I was going out in the woods looking around or something, she would always try to tell him that, hey, he puts up pictures or he's out in the woods, but don't think that he's just out in the woods, because I've spent quite a bit of time out there looking. Uh, she was somebody. George asked the question, where did she go missing from? Her house, or did she leave the house? Well, she was about a quarter of a mile from her house, from what I understand. Uh, her Where she went missing in my house, she actually lived in between there. Uh, that was the last report where she was at.
So she was on foot?
Yes, she was on foot. My understanding was that she was walking on the railroad track. Uh, is and there are the little crossing. I think where the uh, reportedly that the confrontation between her and her boyfriend took place. But I hate to. I don't want to paint him in a bad light because I don't know. I don't know if he had anything to do with it. Not he may not have. I know he'd been with her for a long, long. They'd been together for a long time. Uh, I'm sure they had fights. Any couple that stays together for a long time, they have a few arguments and quarrels and fights. And if you're maybe not a church going person, or maybe even you are, sometimes your fights may get out of hand. That don't make you a murderer. Uh, so I don't think we should point the finger just at him, because there's other people in the area that who knows what could have happened. Uh, but the lack of effort, not bringing in the cadaver dog, was very disappointing for me, and I've seen it happen a time or two.
And often with these type of things, you'll get um, police that will focus only on one person right away. They get a bad feeling about them. They'll focus on one person right away and ignore everything else. But with this, it just seemed like they just didn't
Well,
bother.
well, now the her boyfriend had a history, and I'm sure the police knew who he was and that type of thing. I don't think her cell phone was ever found or checked or anything after that. If it was, it wasn't made knowledge, Wendy. It didn't wasn't made public. But we see that a lot in this area where a person goes missing or even is murdered. Uh, and it just seems like the case is not solved. There's not a whole lot of effort put forth. And I understand that there's budget constraints with the police departments and things like that. But I put forth effort just to try to find this girl, her remains, if she was buried down there, if she is buried down there on her property, for closure for her family. it's bad enough to lose a child or any family member or even just a friend, but it's even worse to not have closure with being able to bury them and knowing where they're at. I mean, maybe you would have hope that maybe they're alive somewhere, but the not knowing would, to me, that would really eat me up.
Well, the imagine just the things that you can imagine in your head that could have happened without that closure, that will never stop. You may go longer times without thinking about it, but the things that I can't, if that was my daughter, I couldn't fathom that, because the thoughts that would go through my head of what could have happened, that's,
Yeah.
it would be really nice if everybody could get closure, but it's not just down there, it's everywhere with certain classes of people and certain types of people. These people weren't born bad. They ended up with a bad habit, which turned into a bad addiction.
Yeah.
And that doesn't automatically, but none of it by default makes you a murderer.
Right.
But
Well,
I find if a case doesn't blow right up and get huge right away, it gets all but brushed off.
well, we speak about people becoming addicts. Sometimes the road to becoming an addict is real easy to get there. Uh, I know of people who had a legitimate medical problem, went in, got surgery to fix it, and the medicine they give them got them hooked on it, uh, whether it be pills or whatever. And then they have almost a whole life of nothing but that, trying to get it back off of it. So sometimes things happen to people that's kind of out of their control when it comes to things like surgeries and medications, things like that. Uh, but even though these these type of people may go missing or be murdered or whatever, I think it's the Justice Department and the justice system should do their very best to try to find out what happened to them, where they went to, regardless of what circumstances they come from. Which I know if you're a rich guy or whatever, there's more money to throw around, and there was reward money offered for this girl, and it's probably still out there. If you can, know her whereabouts or whatever, you can come forward. And I don't even remember how much it was. I think it started out at $5,000 or $6,000. I don't know what it's up to now. But that's been several years. But like I say, I have looked for this girl, and a lot of times I think about it and wonder what happened to her, where she's at. It's just things you can't answer. I know I was down there when the police were there, and they were taking some pictures of what they would consider areas of interest. And there was a shirt laying on the ground, where it appeared to be a man's shirt because it was large, where the guy took his shirt off and laid it on the ground. And the police took the picture of the shirt, and then I bagged it up as evidence. I imagine. I guess that's why they was put it in a plastic bag. And I was telling the guy, because when you Bigfoot and stuff, you do investigative work. And I was telling the police officer, I said, you need to take a picture of the grass that is up under that shirt. He wasn't going to. I said, take a picture of the grass, because that tells you, you can pretty much guess how long that shirt's been laying there by how much of the grass was dead. And the grass was not dead. It had kind of turned yellow like grass does.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, you need to take a picture of that, because there's people who can tell you exactly probably how long it's been laying there. Just simple stuff like that, when you're doing investigation work, can make a difference in the end when you go, if you had to go to court, or you're establishing a timeline for somebody being there or something like that.
Oh, it's a shame that they don't put the same effort in for some that they do with others, but that's the way it is everywhere.
Yeah, it's true. I've seen a lot around here, and which I know a lot of our stuff is limited. Funding in this part of the world is kind of limited on some stuff. Uh, Recently, we've had a problem with our ambulance service, that they can't find people to work, and they're only for a while they only had one ambulance running. I don't know how many they got now, but they only had one ambulance running. George Robinson asked the question: was the road visible from the train tracks? Yes, a part of it is, and then another part there's some trees and there's some high weeds. But my understanding now, if I remember correctly, this took place just before daylight of the morning time. Is when the little confrontation or whatever went on, the shouting or whatever went on, and there's been several people that have been interviewed about this, about because they heard the shouting, but I don't think nothing's ever came of it. It made the news, been on the news several times, and tonight I wanted just to bring a little bit of awareness to it. This is a local person. I never had no trouble with her or her boyfriend or any of those. I've seen him out several times, know him. I never had any trouble with him. They never caused any, no trouble with us. And it's just a tragedy that it happened. Uh, some pointed the finger at the boyfriend, but what if he didn't have anything to do with it? And he's been with this girl a long time. He's hurting. He's hurting just like the rest of her family is. Because without a doubt, he'd been with her for years. You had to care about her. So if he didn't have anything to do with it and somebody else did, he's in a bad way too, wanting to know what's going on.
As much as what, and I mean the drugs that are out there today, one hit and you're hooked. That's not an exaggeration. That's the way it is. And one of the worst things are like you said, the pills. My aunt had back in the day before they had gastric bypass and stuff like that. She had what they used to call having your stomach stapled.
Yeah.
And they sent her home with some pain pills. She lasted longer than what most people do. She had never had a problem with any type of addiction in her life, but with these particular pills, they don't do what they were doing, and then your body starts craving them. I mean, these things, you're taking heroin in pill form. They slap a fancy name on it, but basically you're either taking heroin or synthetic heroin in pill form. And so very good people could go out one night and have a drink, and someone pass around these newer drugs or the pills, and they're not thinking quite clear, and it's only their first time doing it, and they're screwed because they're so addictive.
And the thing is too, if they do get addicted, and something happens to them, we shouldn't treat them as if they're a second class citizen. We should put forth the same effort to find this girl as we would if the judge executive was missing or the sheriff was missing. We should put forth the same effort trying to find this person as we would them. Sometimes people's circumstances, it can't be helped, and we got to treat them equally and try to put forth the effort to really find them. Her dad, her child, they're hurting. They don't care that she had a drug problem, or if she did. They love her the same, and they would like to, I'm sure they'd like to have closure herself.
We get another question there from George.
Is there a large homeless population? Not in this particular area. We have at one time we had just two or three, but usually they had a place they could go stay. We don't have in this area here. We don't really have a homeless problem. Now, if you go to Middlesboro, the city of Middlesboro, they got several homeless people, but they have a few places that they can stay. In the wintertime, it's a little hard on, but no, right here in this area, we really don't have much homeless problem. A few years ago, we had a few people, but a couple of them was boys, and they built a little shed up there, up at Path Fork area. And then we had a couple girls that they actually took residence up under a bridge for a little while, but that didn't last long. But largely we don't have much homeless problem in this area.
But yeah, and people really do have to realize that they can, call these people now all the names that they want, and but the innocent, not everybody gets into drugs, in an innocent way. But like I said, a lot of them. I mean, it's very few that haven't tried a little weed or some acid or some mushroom stuff like that. If they're not educated on certain drugs or even in the right frame of mind, and they, like I said, they try it one time and they're hooked, and that people think that that's just a catchphrase, that it's so strong that you try it one time and you're hooked. It is not. It's a fact. You try it one time and you're hooked. There are drugs out there that they will put that much of a grip on you right away.
Well, that's about all I had on that case. That's a local case that I wanted to highlight a little bit.
That's just sad, man. That is a sad case.
It's a case I guess I'm indirectly involved in because it was on our, happened close to our property, and I've actually looked for the person and know some of her friends, and well, I know her, and the other her like I started calling her husband's boyfriend. I don't reckon they were married. Uh, yeah, train tracks sometimes are nefarious. There's a lot of nefarious stuff goes on. This train track here, there's not been a train run on it in probably, I don't know, 10 or 15 years maybe. With all the coal industry kind of closed down around here, so they've kind of let the maintenance on those tracks go over the years. There's no reason to really maintain it a whole lot, and not very many people use it. As far as walking or anything like that, it's because the ties are just too far apart, and it makes it hard. It's not comfortable to walk. The little creek that runs down through there, there's some good fishing in it. Now sometimes I'll get in that creek and I'll wade down through there and fish. But yeah, normally we don't have a whole lot of problem like that with right in this general area. I can think of a few murders and things over the years that's happened here that maybe are, well, they're unsolved, but we don't have very many people go missing from this particular area. Now I know in Middlesboro we had a lady. I'll briefly tell you about it. She was getting, I think, is getting ready for church, and this is kind of interesting. And she went out the door first and out onto the street. Well, the rest of the family come out to get in the car to go, and she's not there. She was missing for, man, I don't know. And they looked all over for her, and they didn't. For like 2 or 3 years, they couldn't find her. Then they found some bones. I don't know. I can't remember exactly if it was her or not, but I think it was. And there's no way this old lady walked that far through the mountains back on a ridge. Either somebody had to take her there, or something took her there, and I don't know how that's possible. But that's a recent case that over the last several years that happened that got nationwide kind of attention. But now this girl here, the Caldwell girl, I don't know, it seemed like they kind of let it die off. So I did want to bring a little bit of exposure to it, and if anybody knows anything about it, contact the local authorities or state police, and I'm sure they let you do it anonymously. Uh, it's been long enough now that if you know something, you should be able to tell it. And if they can find and recover her body and bring closure to the family, and I think she had 1 or 2 kids, that'd probably mean a whole lot to them. I'm sure it's going to be hurtful for them, but to have the closure and know for sure would probably be somewhat satisfying for them to know.
It at least then they could move on in the mourning process. And when everything's unknown and still in the air, you can't move on in the mourning process the way you need to.
So tonight we've covered the little missing boy who was supposedly helped by a bear for 3 days in North Carolina, which which most people think was probably a Sasquatch. I'm in that camp. If the little boy got help, it was most likely not a bear, unless it was some kind of divine intervention. Most likely a Sasquatch. The Dennis Martin case we talked about it. Still no closure on it. At least the little boy and the bear deal story had a happy ending. With Dennis Martin, we're all over the place on him for as far as what really happened to him. Uh, Nobody really knows for sure. All we can do is make guesses. Uh, I like to see that case closed in my lifetime, just so I know. And then we talked about a local case, Jessica Caldwell, been missing since 2018. So I think we've had a pretty good show. I don't know. Hopefully, people have liked it. They value the content. Uh, Maybe we'll have happier shows. I guess to me, this is kind of a sad show because it's dealing with tragedy and people missing and just not knowing. Uh, so hopefully we can have a little more upbeat shows. Well, we did give away a DVD tonight, and we've had some good back and forth with people in the chat.
It is a sad show to even have to do, but next week we'll be talking about something and doing a lot of laughing and things like that. But you can't pretend that these things don't happen. So,
and the bad part is a lot of times these missing person cases, or even like with the little boy that was found, they kind of get buried and pushed aside. Without a doubt, that family with the little missing boy and got him back. They get him back. Without a doubt, that's still probably a real hard subject for them to talk about. That's probably, I'd say, a lot of those emotions come back when you're thinking about a 3-year-old child that's missing out in the cold of mountains and stuff. And what was it, January?
It was in January, yeah, January 22nd or 23rd, I think. Yeah,
that could have easily turned out totally different.
And in under ordinary circumstances, it really should have. I mean, obviously, we're glad it didn't, but it really, the chances were not good for the boy. And
in today's world, when a child goes missing, or even a young person that's a little older, we have a lot of, from what I gather and what I read, we have a lot of sex trafficking going on with young people. So once they get into that lifestyle, man, they may never get out of it, not alive. And if they do, I'm sure they're scarred for life.
And that's the thing. We know a lot more about it now, but it's been going on for so long that we didn't realize. Because every town had that old guy's a pervert, or there was like a dirty old man in every town, but we had no idea that this was as enormous as what it is, and it's frightening.
Well, you think about the Elizabeth Smart case. She was gone for a long time, and actually she's on Facebook now. She's doing real well in life, got several kids and married and stuff. But man, she went through a very tragic time. I'm surprised that she has been able to live a life as normal as she is. It seems normal to me. I'm sure she has struggles too, but to think about being kidnapped at a young age and raped and molested and stuff like that, it's hard to fathom to want to get married and have kids later on. To me, it would be. I mean, props to her, man, for being strong.
I would think it would take a lot of therapy before you would even be able to willingly touch another person.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's good for her, and that's another one that, yeah, she went through hell, but in the end she survived it, and she's doing well. But those are rare. The ones that do end up having a happy ending or a semi-happy ending, it could have went the other way. And
well, if I ain't mistaken, what I read earlier when it comes to children, and when she was abducted, I think she was pretty young, like 14 or something, if I remember right.
Yep.
it said within the first 3 hours, 76% found in the first 3 hours. 76% of them are either found or killed or never found out of the first 3 hours. Man, that's incredible.
It's
That's not a
frightening.
big window.
No, sir, it is not.
But I guess Leo, that'll wrap us up for this show. Appreciate everybody showing up, and I hope you enjoyed the show. I like doing serious topics as well, uh, which I think to me, I know me and you both take Bigfoot serious as well, but uh, I like to do some true crime stuff. But I still want to do some more Bigfoot stuff and UFO stuff and all that kind of
Well,
stuff too.
if you and I are doing a show, there's going to be Bigfoot stuff, but we do
Yeah,
have
true.
to we decided to go not with just totally cryptids all the time. We have a lot of the same interests with true crime, missing people, cryptids, and all that. So there's going to be shows that aren't going to be fun. They're not going to be. We have to talk about serious stuff. But on the flip side of that, there'll be a ton of shows that we'll have a ball doing.
Oh yeah, well I enjoy doing it. The biggest part for me is finding time to prepare for whatever the subject may be. So this week I picked things I knew a little bit about because I've studied the Martin case for years, and then this local girl was somebody not only that I somewhat knew, and it was right here in my area, and I helped look for. So it was pretty easy for me to prepare for this. Now the case that you covered, the bear and the Bigfoot, I mean the boy and the bear story. Uh,
No,
I
you meant
remember,
what you said the first time.
yeah, probably Bigfoot. The I didn't know a whole lot about that. I remember when it come out, and I seen some of the headlines and read some about it, but I didn't know a lot of the details about it.
I
So
had forgotten. I had forgotten a lot, but as I was going over the notes and stuff, I ended up with 9 pages of notes, but a lot of it just doesn't have a whole. It's not going to. It doesn't change much of the story. It's not a lot of them weren't the important parts. They're important enough that I'm going to keep them and hang on to them in that. Um, but yeah, it's there was a lot of things that I had forgotten that just checking over the notes and stuff today that came back to me about, and what the one thing that really stuck with me is waist deep water out to where the boy was, and the boy
it's 3 foot tall.
is 3 feet tall. Heavy, he didn't walk on water.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think these kind of shows, even though they kind of have a sad overtone, I think it's important to keep that information out there about missing persons and things that were even like your case where the kid was found. That's important to keep those details out there. Maybe it happened the next case, the next kid that goes missing.
Mhm.
Maybe there's something that we can say or bring to light that will help, somebody, be found or help in some way.
And that's, I mean, we can hope for that, and if we ever found out that it did, I know that it would feel wonderful. And if we never did find out that we helped with anything, but in the end it helped, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully we get to find out that it did. Even if we didn't, then it
Well,
still
I
helped.
would love to know more about I love to see the Martin case solved, and I like to see this local case solved. But uh, all we can do is bring it out there and hope that somebody who knows something steps forward, makes an anonymous call, or and it pans out. And sometimes that's what it takes.
More often than not.
But guys, that's a wrap for us tonight, and no bad luck. We'll see you next Friday. I'm not sure what the topic is yet. We'll figure something out though. We always do, don't we, Leo? I do have a trip to take Friday, but it's real early in the morning, so uh, my wife has to go to the doctor. But we'll be okay. We should be back in plenty of time.
I'm sure we'll start planning probably Sunday, and we'll decide by Tuesday.
Well, I do want to have some guests on as well. I enjoy talking to people.
Well,
Uh,
that was the thing when Justin was on. I wanted to be on, and he's an
Technical
interesting guy, and I wanted to throw
Oh,
some
yeah.
questions at him. And
Yes, and
so,
smart guy.
yeah, we've got to line up some more guests for our cryptid shows and the other shows too. But we got to line some up that we both know that we can be there for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, sometimes things get in the way, technical difficulties. But yeah, I don't want to. I'm real camera shy. Believe it or not, I make films.
Oh man, that makes two of us.
And I'm more comfortable behind the camera than in front of it. Uh, I don't know why, but so it's kind of hard for me sometimes because I get a little nervous. But it gets better as you go on, I guess. And I enjoy doing them. Like I say, the time is getting all the information I need. I like to be well prepared, and sometimes I'm not. So, and I don't have I don't have anything to go to that that can distract people. I guess so. I have to have some facts.
Yeah, well, it was it was a good show, and some good information. Like you said, it's not every show is going to be a lot of fun, but there are things that need to be talked about.
Exactly. Keep awareness out there, and if you know got information about somebody that's missing, or you can help someone, do it. And we'll end the stream now. We appreciate everybody that showed up. The winner of the DVD, please just email me, and I will take care of that and get that out to you. And everybody, be safe and have a great night. And we will see you next time.
See y'all next week.